And here's another one that makes use of some pitch blocks. I'm planning on doing a video of some pitch blocks tutorials. Some of the newer members, they have a struggle with whether it's before the amp, after the amp, why. So I'm going to do a tutorial on that, and it'll go into these presets in a little more depth and why I chose to put it here as opposed to some other way. But in this one, I'm using the pitch block set it at 100%. So the original guitar is in here. Only the pitched shift is in here, and it's going through its own amp, which I can adjust the tones and the drive separately, which is nice to give it its own distinct sound and help it sound more like a natural harmony also. And this one I don't have the vibrato going on. I never got around to it, but I may do it at some time. But anywho, so what that does is, just gives me the chance to EQ them a little different. Here's one of the amps, and I'm not sure much has changed, but if I click to this one, yeah, you see the mids are less, and maybe some other stuff in the EQ. I'm going to drop some of the bottom end out of it, but that way you can EQ the harmony separate. Since the Axe 2 lets you run 2 amps, I figured what the heck. And what's also going on in here is the input gain to the pitch shifter. I'm doing similar to what that other one was doing with the 12-string simulation. Is when I play down low, if I play down low, it keeps the pitch input gain all the way off, so there's no harmonizer. Because in this beginning of this song, I actually have to play chords a little bit in between some of these lines, and rather than having to switch back and forth between scenes or having to manipulate a pedal, this does this automatically for me, and I use that in almost every instance that I use the pitch shifter, other than drop tuning. I have it set up to do that in case I want to play a chord for a second in between a little line. I don't have to worry about it being harmonized, so I can do stuff like this. If I need to play, I usually only do it in the first chord, but at least that way I can do it and not have to think about it. Yeah, see what I mean? And this uses more scenes again. The alternate rhythm is, let's see. And in that one, the slapback is controlled by a pedal. So when I do, but then if I need it off like here, that last one doesn't have a delay to it. And then later, when I go to the rest of the rhythms, I can turn it down, leave it down, and go. So anyway, that works out pretty good. And there's some little solo pieces here and there that's similar to the lead setting, but they're a little bit different in volume. So same thing here. I've got my level in the amp block connected to a scene controller. So one's a little quieter. The main lead is louder, but there's a couple little lines, so like when it goes, let's see. And right there's a little. So that lets me just switch real quick to that little part and then go back, and then the regular solo. Delay, some flanger. Same with a lot of the other parts on the rhythms, there's a bit of a flange going on. And so anyway, that's how I use that. I'm actually using just a standard intelligent harmonizer. Doing a third. It's in scale of D, Dorian. I didn't make any changes in the custom part there. Cut the high cut way down. Whenever I pitch up, I tend to cut a lot of the high end because it gets kind of shrilled sounding. So I drop that way off. Otherwise, I use the stock tracking. I'm not playing any chords, so I leave it on mono. It tracks better for single line stuff. It works pretty good. And the only chord I play, it gets muted anyway. So I don't care if it's glitching because you don't hear it. It's turned off on the input gain. And I usually have this set to local. This is an old preset. Matter of fact, I'm going to switch it to local. Well, I don't want to say it right now. But anyway, I tend to use local more often because if you have a high CPU use in your preset, you can get some glitching of some of your external controllers. They'll lag a little bit because that's kind of the first thing the AXFX gives up rather than screwing with the audio. So you'll lose some other functionality and things will take a little longer, scene changes and things will be a little lagged. And I read a post from Cliff talking about that when it's put on local mode, it has a higher priority. So I tend to usually set those to local unless for some reason I can't because of whatever's feeding it is doing something weird where it maybe can't track well, then I'll put it on global. But anywho, we did time around, and here's another one, another pitch block I use a crap out of. 12-string simulation, same thing. It's in parallel this time. Just made it easier that way. I could have put it in the series and then just messed with the mix, but this way I got it in parallel, 100%. Dropped it down 15, minus 15 dB. I'm using my trick with this. And in this one, what I'm doing, since it's, a true 12-string simulation, well, as best as I can, if I play lower notes, it's 12-string. As I go higher, it'll actually turn down the volume of voice 1, which is the octave up, and simultaneously turn up voice 2, which is basically just a reproduction of the same one, no shift, but it does still have the little bit of detuning going on. So it still sounds maybe like 2 strings in a way. So higher up, and then just about at the E, it just starts to crossfade over. So that way I don't have to worry about if I play a little higher part, it's not going to sound weird with an octave way up there. So I can just do that, So that's on during most of the parts. During the solo, of course not. In the solo, all I didn't use a dry block. I'm just using the same clean sound I was using pretty much, the Class A 30 watt Vox sound. But I have this with a 10 dB boost. And it's connected to a scene controller. And the reason for that is I have another part of the song that has a little bit less of a gain, little solo pieces here and there, and that way it's a little, not quite the boost until you get to there, and then it's the full-on boost, and that really works pretty good for the Vox sound. It hits it harder in the front. There's also a low-end cutout boost there, just a kind of a clean boost, but a little bottom end taken out of it. Sometimes when you push the amps harder, they get real boomy, so I like to take a little bit out in the solo filter boosts. It's only a dB more because this actually, it's not that dirty of an amp, so this hitting that much extra in front actually does increase the volume. Some higher gain amps, you won't see much, you'll just get more gain, you won't actually see much of a volume increase, so you need a little bit more afterwards. And it's just for doing, back to 1. Anyway, pretty cool. And this is our 80s everybody dancing area. Lose Your Love Tonight. Ever since Scenes came out, my presets started looking more like this. I'm trying to cover a lot of ground with one preset. So what's going on here is in the beginning of the song, another Class A 30 with a lot of compression going in front of it. You can hear that. So it goes into that amp. It also drops down into this filter, which goes my acoustic line, which I haven't really shown yet. Even though there is an acoustic guitar in here, but there's a clean part later when it comes as an overdub, but when it's like... And what that is, let me mute this guy for a second. It's kind of a super clean, kind of buried, but it's got a lot of washy reverb on it. And when you add that, it definitely changes kind of the whole vibe of the tune. When you first start and it's more plain. When you kick in scene 2, and then for the little solo piece, I'm using that pitch block in front of an amp trick and a filter block to drive the amp I'm currently using a little harder. This one doesn't need it because it's already driven hard enough for that extra harmony, but it's muted, so it doesn't matter. So when I kick that in, it brings this in, and I was messing with these earlier. I think I forgot to re-enable that one. So that should be that. Let's save that. Anyway, so now I can do this. And they're both just using the same cab. It's actually a tone match from that song. And pitch block is just doing children harmony, third. This one's set at third too, but the level's down, so it's not doing anything. Just this one's running. No detune, nothing weird. Just going. And it looks like I got the output quite a bit higher. I think I'm using that to drive the amp similar to this. And that helps drive that second amp too. It sounds different than if I turned up the gain in the amp, so I wanted to kind of make them similar. But instead of using another block, this block's already sitting there not doing nothing, so boom, turns into a gain boost.